So let's bring in my wonderful panel. Joining me here in the Sky News studio is journalist and political commentator James Macpherson from The Spectator. Also from The Spectator, Garrick Professor of Law, Jim Allen, and the Daily Telegraph's brilliant editorial cartoonist Warren Brown. Great to see you, three of you. We'll get on to the US election in a second, but first of all, let's talk about Medibank. The hackers warned it would happen, and now hundreds of Medibank customers' names, addresses, numbers and dates of births have been posted on the dark web. The big question is, should the ransom have been paid to avoid this happening? What are your thoughts on it, Jim Allen?
Well, I'm glad they didn't pay. I mean, whenever you give in to this sort of thing, it just comes back. There's a real temptation to pay and keep it quiet and not tell anybody. But I actually think they made the right call not to pay. It's hurting them a bit, but hopefully none of the big corporates will pay when this happens. But I don't know. But I don't know enough about IT to know how to stop this stuff. But I can tell you, it's better not to pay.
Warren Brown, your thoughts as a cartoonist? How do you approach the wonderful world of hacking of personal details?
Well, as a cartoonist, there are two ways with this, Rowan, of course. As a cartoonist, I like the kind of Russian aspect of it. I like the idea of Vladimir Putin sitting there with a pile of, photographs of your hemorrhoids or whatever it is that they've been able to glean from Medicare. But it's right. I mean, you can't give in to this. It's a bit like, this is a form of terrorism, obviously. And if you think back in the 70s when there were planes being hijacked all over, continually, the Baader-Meinhof gang and the Red Brigade and all these things. And eventually it was like, that's enough. We're not negotiating with this anymore. And so that's always been the sort of the standard way to treat terrorism. And I think this is just the same. Do not give into it, because if you do, it'll just, it's the thin end of the wedge.
James Macpherson?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. Of course, they can't pay the ransom, but this gives pause to everybody because we're rapidly approaching a time where we'll have digital identities and with it social credit scores, and all of our personal data and our transactions will be known by everybody, governments and criminals. And so there's two things I think we should be asking. Firstly, why are corporations demanding so much information from us to provide basic services? You go to the doctors to get him to look at your ingrown toenail and he wants your entire medical history. Or I was at an airport recently and all I wanted was free Wi-Fi, which they offered, but I had to supply my name, my date of birth, my postcode, my email. Why do they need all that just to give me free Wi-Fi? Now, we know why they need it.
So they can sell it and make a fortune.
Exactly,
James.
but we need to push back on this, especially if they're not prepared to keep it safe.
I agree.